So let's talk about preparations for the Saturday elections in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states. Right now, we have joining us in the studio two political analysts, Ayodele, Adewale, as well as Gbola. And you're both welcome, Mr. Gbola and Mr. Comrade Ayodele. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Comrade.
Right.
You must have been one of those who blocked the airport yesterday.
And perhaps we should start from that, Mr. Adewale. What are your thoughts? You have, been an activist, from school days and all of that. Looking at the happenings of yesterday by the labor unions regarding the situation or the tussle with the Imo State government, and that is a state where elections will also hold on Saturday. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
For me, that action need not to have happened, because you have
Which of them now? The incursions at the airports?
The airport incidents, because you must put nation above self-interest, and you must put the interest of your people, collective interest, above primordial interest. Yes, Labour has some agitation that they claim, but again, it is limited to the interest of the workers. What about the community? What about people living in the state? What about investors who are coming into that state for the very first time, hoping to bring investment that will make life easy for the people of the state and increase their economic activity? These are issues that Labour should look at. If you want to make more impact, then you target, those who you claim make life very unbearable for your workers, not to make life unbearable for the people of Imo State. And you will lose their support if you keep doing that, and the people can rise against you. And the implication is that whatever you're fighting for will end up being not understood or in nullity.
Well, but what are your thoughts? Do you see this Labour moves having any impact on the elections in Imo State tomorrow?
I wouldn't know. To be honest with you, it's not over until it's over. An election is like going to court. You can only think you have a good case, but until the judgment is pronounced, everything is speculative. However, I think the hand that the NLC is playing in Imo may ultimately boomerang against the NLC. The NLC is literally been seen to be playing a partisan card, which is unfortunate. I am not an admirer of the governor of Imo State. I'm not particularly, even the circumstance that brought him into office, I am not particularly, is one of those things. Let's be honest with ourselves. In recent times, one of the very, very few pronouncements or decisions of the Supreme Court that have seemed to stigmatize the integrity of our democracy and the concept of the rule of law in Nigeria. How could somebody who came forth ultimately be pronounced to be governor? But he is the governor. And whichever way we look at it, the beauty of democracy is that it gives an opportunity for him to either be validated or be rejected. Why shouldn't the NLC let the process go on without its aberrative this thing? So, but a friend was telling me yesterday that, well, you know what, I quite agree with you, but you will agree with me too, that in an environment of lawlessness, it is actually unlawful to be lawful. That is the quagmire we have pushed ourselves into now. People can rationalize irrationality, and people believe that okay, maybe they decided to go that way because they just feel that okay, the guy went there wanting to protest. Why didn't they just allow him to walk the streets of Owerri for a couple of hours and pick his return ticket back to Abuja. After all, he lives in Abuja. Why did somebody arrange for him to be captured, abducted and beaten up? So that Gbola realized the fact that sometimes in life, illegality resolves illegality. I don't know the maths of that. I thought they said, it's unfortunate.
All right. And, that said, I want to also, check with Mr. Adewale about one aspect that Gbola Oba, touched on, and that is also something that many Nigerians can relate with. The interventions of the court has, sometimes, especially regarding elections, have brought up so much controversies, discontent. The Supreme Court had spoken in the Imo State, for example, but looking at the bigger picture, and that is what has even brought about these off-cycle elections. In your view, what value do these off-cycle elections, triggered by interventions of the court, largely, what values have they brought to our system?
You must appreciate that is the reality of the process that led to the court even coming in the first place. And the court have only pronounced its judgment based on the facts that have been presented before it, and based on how those facts were channeled and, of course, propelled. And it goes to show that the Imo people themselves must have to come out en masse. I keep telling people that you cannot rig when the people are very, very watchful. You understand? The people must come out en masse, must vote en masse, must also defend their votes, and they must monitor their votes. And those electoral players, especially the political parties, their agents, must learn to keep those results, keep it very well, aggregate it, and no matter who wants to use the judiciary for arm twisting, when you have your fact right and you present it right, then the people's will always opine.
Well, and again, it's been said that these off-cycle elections, by the way, also happen to be, better managed on the part of security agencies, on the part of INEC, because they are off-cycle elections, and perhaps there will be more resources, more attention on these select states. Do you agree, and do you see that happening this time around?
Before I get to that, I just basically want to tail on what my colleague and brother as just the points just made. You see, because sometimes when we come to platforms like this, I feel it is incumbent on those of us who sit here to also know that we are seen to be educating our public. The courts are part of our electoral process. I think we must let Nigerians know, however ugly, however untamed it may sound. In all liberal democracies on the face of the earth, be it America, look, at some point during the last American presidential elections, there were more than 300 cases in the courts of some states because the two sides, and that is typical of liberal democracy, because liberal democracy is ultimately a robust, organic liberal democracy ultimately defines adversariality. It's a contestation of ideas.
Okay, that's why you used the word untamed earlier.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying it may seem that why would Gbola be saying the courts are part of the electoral process? Because ultimately, politicians may disagree, but when they disagree, to avoid anarchy and chaos, there must be a fossilization of and you take it to an establishment, so that we have to say that. We don't like it, but that has brought us to this aberrant situation of having off-cycle elections. Now, the off-cycle elections themselves, some of us came to studios like this to celebrate them when the courts, up to Supreme Court in those days, or appeal court, we had gubernatorial legalistic contestations used to end, we came to stations like this to celebrate the fact that the wronged parties got their rightful mandates. So we must not be hypocritical at this juncture. However, we must also come to the realization that realpolitik speaks to the fact that the states are having aberrant cycles of elections because the temperament of politicians in those states, their temperaments are a bit, because if your state is a very orderly state and if the political class in that state are very respectful of the rule of law, your state will not be in a situation where it is playing in the off-cycle league. So don't let's sit here this morning and expect me, romanticizing what will happen in Imo, what will happen in Kogi, what will happen in this thing, because you know what? We've seen elections in those places and we know the last election in Kogi, they were even singing it openly. And you know what? Somebody was literally burnt to death in our house. So I'm sitting here now just believing, praying, because the security personnel too, they are related to us. Their children, their fathers, their mothers, their friends. So they also need security. We just pray that the political class, which is the weakest link in our electoral value, in our democratic value chain, will behave themselves.
Weakest, you say?
The politicians are the weakest link, value-wise. I'm sorry, my brother is in front of me, he's a politician. But you see, when they want to win at all cost. And they don't really care. And we've seen it across the parties. There's no party of the saints, and there's no party of the devils. They are us. They didn't fall from Mars, and they didn't fall from Venus. They are Nigerians.
All right. So what do you think? To what extent do you agree with, Mr. Oba's, assertions here, especially the value politicians bring to the system? And, when we look at how these off-cycle elections will also enhance our electoral values and system, what do you think?
Well, as much as I try to level up on some of his assertion, I would depart from some also. The politicians are players. They are key players in this system of acquisition of power. But you must understand that the people own the system, right? The people are the owners of the entire space, and the people determines what happens. A politician you could have some politician that might have an X factor. X factor in the sense that they do not want to align with the rule of the game. But again, if they don't have the cooperation of the people, they will be alienated, right? You can envelope them within the context of their dexterity to commit crime. If the people resolve that this is where we're going, look at the lady that was pronounced winner in Kogi State, the senatorial lady. It was shown that a road leading to a village where she's contesting was excavated. But the people resolved to vote for her, right? Someone was announced, they were able to gather their facts, and they went to court. And at the end of the process, the governor of Kogi congratulated her. That shows you the resolve of the people. So platforms like yours must continue to put out information to enlighten people on their civic responsibility. And if people come out to carry out that responsibility, nothing would affect that system. The security operatives, they don't have the number, right, to protect that space. Take it or leave it. They don't have the right number. They still need to leverage on the people in the community in order to give them timely information, in order to tell the players that, look, if you are found wanting to breach any of these laws, you will go down for it. So everybody is involved. I mean, this mundane is not an angelic mundane. Even an angelic space, you still have some level of sins and all of that. So that is not to pin down all politicians. But you can't say some politicians are found wanting. and the people must expose them.
Okay, and then the second leg of the question, which I would also come back to Mr. Oba on, that is, what your expectations are regarding the outcome of tomorrow's elections in terms of, better management. And there are permutations on ground already seen in all the 3 states. They all carry their own, will I say, baggage of, insecurity, permutations and all that. But in terms of the readiness of security forces especially, and, the fact that people need to come out to vote, to trust the process and, cast their ballots, how optimistic are you?
I'm very optimistic that that process will go well. As I watch your program where a member of the civil society was able to bring out some organic data telling us that 90% of the people of Kogi have picked up their cards, their voters' card. So it shows that the tempo is high, the consciousness is high. Yes, you are going to have gaps. You are definitely going to have gaps. So the civil society, the media, and of course, cell phones, be able to bring out all of these gaps for security operatives to see and, of course, work it within their system in order to provide solution for that. INEC itself must be very up on their game. This is another opportunity for them to do what is right and correct all of the gaps that have been seen in the last elections, as said in various courts, that have unturned some mandates and all of these things. Everybody's hands must be on the deck to make sure that things are done appropriately well.
What's your take, Gbola, but still on, the security operatives' readiness? Thousands of personnel, tens of thousands of personnel at the least have, been dispatched, to go to serve in these states, and of course there are boots on the ground. But then it will not be the first time that security operatives will be sent out in large numbers to states off-cycle elections. That is, yet we still see in Imo, in Bayelsa, in Kogi State, we also see activities of criminals rife on voting day, before, during, and even after. This time around, does it appear to you that we might just, get a, in terms of a clean sweep, so to speak, not of the numbers, but, on the part of security forces?
The election is not taking place in heaven. So in so much
it's not perfect.
It's not going to be perfect. Let's be honest with ourselves. But would we? I can afford to say, I'm not a betting man, I can afford to say and bet that, you know what, we will have a substantially clean round of elections in the states that will largely comply with the electoral act and the Constitution. I can afford to say that because INEC has a rich antecedent of managing the off-cycle elections very well. You must remember that INEC was commended in Anambra, INEC was commended in Ekiti, INEC was commended in Edo. These were off-cycle elections. Apart from, if I want to be cynical, I will tell you that our securocracy, especially chief securocrats, the police, the army, and this thing, they use these elections too. Like we have, and it's typical Nigerian. Sometimes when I'm talking to businessmen, people I do business with, I tell them, is Nigeria at all in this factor? And they mess me. If you like the money, if you get the money, then go and throw it away. You understand? But the truth is that our primary disposition when we see any opportunity, both of all of us now, in the public and the district, okay, don't let me say all of us, because some people may want to, throw away their teacups listening to me. But 99% of Nigerians, when we see such opportunity, what am I going to make out of it? What is Gbola going to make out of it? And it's unfortunate. That is how we have gotten to where we are now. So I am one who believes that all those numbers of 44,000, 44,000 men deployed. You go to those polling units and this thing, and you see, not with all the budgets allocated to them, extra budgetary allocations that they get. Do you see any remarkable difference from how that policeman was looking yesterday and now and today? So apart, if I want to be cynical, I will say, okay, some people will make money. But relative to what normally prevails, they really deploy a sizable percentage of their force relative to the space. They do it. We can't discountenance that. But you know what? I am one who believes that the elections will substantially comply with the Constitution, which is the grand norm, and the Electoral Act, which is predicated. I believe these elections will. But you know what? Just ask ourselves this question about Imo State. Before electioneering campaigns, some criminal elements in Imo have decided to, I want to say masochistically, disturb the peace of the society that gave back to them. And some degree of disruption have been in the normal course of life in Imo. For a while, people were not even allowed to come and do their businesses on Monday. There are areas you go to and you are not sure that there have been reported killings, murders. So those elements too are still there. That's not the fault of politicians, though. That's the fault of ill-educated people who, if they have read well the history of how humanity have repeatedly emancipated themselves, will know that at some point, violence will harm those who perpetrate it more than those who want to perpetrate it against.